If there's no response from here, I'll allow the other two or three questions or comments very quickly from the floor. Yes?
Well, I can't answer her last question, but I can answer the first one. I absolutely think open source data is something that this region would, and any developing country actually would benefit from. Its access to information, and especially when you're talking about the development of our region, what Earl talked about, disaster preparedness and planning, access to data is critical to being able to do that. The problem is you're relying on other people. You're relying on foreign assets and foreign data centers. And so if we could develop our own indigenous capability, we are better for that. Yes, absolutely.
I need to, it's not very often CARICOM gets a plug, but I will use the opportunity. Because within CARICOM, because there are a lot of criticisms, a lot of work has gone on within CARICOM in terms of regional information and communication technology work. Maybe it's not as known. It has happened over a long period of time and over many different sectors. Climate change, disaster preparedness, cultural industries, telecommunications, health issues. So maybe, Ambassador LaRocque, one of the things is that CARICOM's work and the work that it has enabled in the region probably will be one of the things that needs to be fed into this, right? So we needed to give CARICOM the credit there. A lot of work has gone on there. Okay.
Can I actually just actually just respond on Camille's point to that woman's comment there? And I just wanted to give 3 examples. I think CARICOM certainly, but I would also say in relation to disaster preparedness, the Cuban government has been by far and away the most advanced in the region in relation to things like climate change modeling. And so we do have examples within the Caribbean that we can draw on. We have the other example, whether we agree with it or not, of the Saramacca peoples of Suriname, who teamed up with scientists from around the world in GIS mapping to bring the Surinamese government to court, to the Inter-American Court, and to win a case against an effort to take away their traditional lands. And then the final thing is, yes, it is important to popularize this, and I think there are examples. We have dengue and chikungunya throughout the region. My sister's an environmental scientist, and one of the things that she had been interested in at the time, drawing on the work of people in Pakistan, was using mobile phones. So people were sort of mobilized to use mobile phones to take images of areas that had dengue, to take images of blocked drains, and then they would use that information to map that. So it was using people power, in a sense, to create maps that allowed for effective interventions that ended up really drastically reducing the dengue rates. And I think people in St. Lucia were beginning to think of that, either in relation to dengue and chikungunya. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you. So we have three more from the floor. 3 more from the floor, and then we'll, yeah. And this is not half an hour, my brother from St. Martin.
Okay. No, I know it's me again.
And I know you will be very gentle with me.
No, I'm going to be very quick with this. If we understand diplomacy as influence peddling, in which there are no permanent friends but permanent interests, my question would be, have we as Caribbean people established what are our permanent interests in this ever-changing, technologically driven world? That's question number 1. 2, I believe it was the sister, Dr. Alisa Trotz, who mentioned about the media, the role of the media. It is mind-boggling that we live in a world in which perception is reality. And a world in which it's a kind of a make-believe world in which we go to war over imaginary weapons of mass destruction. The media creates and sustains that perception. What are we doing in the Caribbean to use our media as an ally of our diplomatic approach to this global village?
Go ahead, please. You're at the mic.
Yes, good evening. Faiz Jafar, postgrad student at the Institute of International Relations. And one survey I conducted for people in Trinidad as, what do you think diplomacy is? The answer was one, all of them have the same answer. Diplomacy is a cocktail party. That's what they think. And my point is to Professor Johan Brantel. Actually, just 10 minutes before your presentation, I was engaged in some discussion with professors from the Institute about the necessity of engaging the complexity concept in IR. And I tried to come and pick, before he rises up, the red mark and try to give you some reasons why we are not on level of strategic diplomacy, why we are not engaging that. And this is based on study, and I spent very good time, I can tell you, months in studying that, and specifically for Trinidad and Tobago. And it also is similar elsewhere. One, the reason why we don't engage, it's difficult. That's one answer. Number two, it looks too academic. This is remind me by Immanuel Kant. People, it might be right in theory, but it's not good in practice. Third problem, which you mentioned, non-linearity. Politicians like to expect and predict. Non-linearity is difficult. But some of them think it's very metaphysical. In another word, if we don't engage complexity approach in our diplomacy, in the Caribbean, we cannot move at all. Just look at the chapter 7, United Nations, Article 42. Self-organizing mechanism is the heart of complexity approach. Chaos and the new diplomacy called garbage can diplomacy. Chaos, constructive chaos, transformational diplomacy. Unfortunately, we don't have this. Constructive chaos. All these come from the complexity which we tend to ignore for no reason, but just because we think it's really difficult to understand. Thank you very much.
So we have one more from the floor.
I just wanted to add to the presentation of Mrs. Alaine, Space Expedition Curaçao, linking tourism and the space challenges.
Okay, so Prof, I'm going to help you by asking your discussants and presenters. One, if there's anything you want to react to in terms of the last couple of interventions, comments, questions, critiquing, and if not, really a 30 seconds, if I may, on your behalf, as to what you would like to leave, even after getting the feedback and as we go to the close.
Just one comment on the cocktail party. There is a cocktail component. This is the old club element, and the same sort of hard work around cocktail parties is still manifested in many foreign services around the world. But I don't think you run a good foreign ministry by only thinking cocktail parties are where the action is. I mean, I think there's a huge sort of frontline component of diplomacy that has to be really taken into account. Disaster relief has been brought up. Consular affairs, more and more problematic to get citizens out of problematic situations. All sorts of visa issues under problematic conditions. These are the sort of things that I think working diplomats are doing. So even though I'd certainly be a critic of some hierarchical components of diplomacy, and this is my suggestion about having some sort of new layer where you bring talented men, women, younger people into the system with their skill sets, and also their willingness to be out in the front lines, perhaps in a different way than the older cohorts. But still, I think diplomacy is a mix of clubs and networks, and I think this is what certainly the Academy here, I think, is very cognizant of in terms of their modules. I was very pleased to do a module last year at this time with my colleague who is working on the front lines now as the Chilean ambassador to Beijing, but also, of course, I think appreciates the need for a new stream and a different stream of diplomats as well.
I have one practical thing, which is on the language issue again, as a task for the Academy. But you know, in Guyana, for example, the Venezuelan and Brazilian embassies offer free Spanish and Portuguese classes. And I'm sure that's not the only Caribbean country where that happens. So there might be a way for the academy to link up in ways that it doesn't actually have to cost you to do that. So connecting with embassies that can help to train our diplomats.
The Venezuelan embassy.
There you go.
Are there any more comments or inputs from any of your esteemed guests here at the top? Prof? No?
If I can say one last thing.
Sure. Be my guest.
If my voice holds out.
You can do it from there if you like, or you can come here.
Just begin to, Andy.
Yes. Okay, so I think one of the takeaways I want to take away from this particular panel is that we do have an opportunity to build self-confidence among our young people in the next generation of diplomats. It's one of the things that Hillary talked about it. Prime Minister Gonzalez talked about it. I think he called it self-mastery. And we can do so through training, developing skills among our young people. And this is what we're trying to do with the Diplomatic Academy of the Caribbean. And I want to give a lot of thanks to Minister Dukuran and the Trinidad government for having the vision to create and establish an indigenous capacity within the region to train our diplomats. And I also want to announce, I hope you can hear me, that we will have a module on labor diplomacy sometime in September of this year. The actual dates will be announced soon in collaboration with the International Labor Organization. And you might wonder, why are we venturing into that subject matter of labor diplomacy? But we do have to have labor peace in order to be able to have our economies grow, in order to be able to have decent labor, decent wages, decent work and wages for our people. And the International Labor Organization has decided to collaborate with us in order to make this happen. Also, finally, there will be a module on looking towards Latin America. We keep saying that we need to expand through convergence our relationship with Latin America. Well, the Academy is going to do something very pragmatic on this module on looking towards Latin America, and the Argentine government is actually footing the bill for this module. And we will bring some of the best diplomats across CARICOM to be trained in this particular module. So I want to thank the government of Argentina for doing that. And I will encourage other governments whose ambassadors and high commissioners are here to think about collaborating with us in offering similar kinds of modules in the future. So thank you very much for persevering, and thank you for putting up with my voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Knight, and every one of you who've made such great contributions here as we kind of move to bringing a close to the proceedings. Just, you know, there have been many sentiments, there have been many